Hello class, right now we're going to go over 45, 45, 90 triangles. We started class out by reviewing the Pythagorean theorem, and the Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared if you have a right triangle, okay, meaning that you have a 90-degree angle. So we did an example where we had to find the hypotenuse, and then the two sides are the same, so 1, 1, 2, 2, and then 3, 3. So what we did is we actually used the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse. And one thing that we noticed, so for example, number one, it was just the square root of 2. But for letter B, we got the square root of 8. And something that we need to remember is that we need to break that down into 4 times 2, because square root of 4 is a perfect square. It's equal to 2. Square root of 4 is the same as 2 with a leftover square root of 2. So whenever you have a square root of a number, make sure you break it down into the simplest form. Okay, same thing over here. We got square root of 18. So 9 times 2. And the square root of 9 is 3, and we have a square root of 2 left over. So we realized there was a pattern here. If the two sides are the same, then the third side is the same side times square root of 2. So 1 times the square root of 2. This side is going to be 2 times the square root of 2. This side is going to be 3 times the square root of 2. So if you have two legs, the legs are the same, and then the hypotenuse is going to be the same as the leg times the square root of 2. And we can use that pattern for any 45, 45, 90 triangle. So in example 2, we did more example problems where we have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, and we have to find x and y. They tell you that one of the legs is 7. That means that the other leg also has to be 7, so x equals 7. And if the legs is 7, the hypotenuse has to be leg times the square root of 2, but we already know the leg is 7, therefore the hypotenuse is going to be 7 times the square root of 2. So y is 7 times the square root of 2. So we're just applying the pattern that we figured out right here. So if one of the legs is 5, the other leg has to be 5. And if the leg is 5, the hypotenuse has to be 5 times the square root of 2. Letter C. Here we have to find both legs, and they give us the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is 4 times the square root of 2, and using the pattern that we learned earlier, the hypotenuse is always leg times the square root of 2. So leg times the square root of 2 is equal to 4 times the square root of 2. And we know that the leg has to be 4 because the square root of 2's are the same over here. So if the leg is 4, that means that x is 4 and y is 4. Letter D, the hypotenuse is 10, and we have to find the two legs. So 10 has to be the same as leg times the square root of 2. So here we have 10 is the same as leg times the square root of 2, and we want to know what the leg is, so we get rid of the square root of 2 by dividing square root of 2 on both sides. These square root of 2's cancel out, and we're left with leg equals 10 divided by the square root of 2. Now we're not allowed to have square roots in the denominator. That's why we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the square root of 2. It's a little trick that helps us get rid of the square root in the denominator, because the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is square root of 4, and square root of 4 is just 2. Okay, so we don't have a square root in the bottom anymore. That's good. We can simplify. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So the length of the leg is 5 times the square root of 2. That means that x is 5 square root of 2 and y is 5 square root of 2. They are the same. The last example we did was when we had a word problem. So we're going to find the length of the two sides of a right triangle if the length of the hypotenuse is 4 root 2 inches and one of the angles is 45. So it's important that one of the angles is 45, because if one of the angles is 45 and this one is 90, that makes that the other one has to be 45 as well. So if it's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, you can apply the rule again. So if the hypotenuse is 4 square root of 2, that is equal to the leg times square root of 2. Again, using the pattern, the hypotenuse is always leg times square root of 2. So leg times square root of 2 is equal to 4 square root of 2. And then you looking at the structure again, leg has to be 4. Okay, because they both have a square root of 2, so leg and 4 have to be the same. So if the leg is 4, then the other leg is 4. So our answer is that the other two sides measure 4 inches. Okay, that's it.